Catholics especially should know better than anyone that there is a hierarchy of gravity when it comes to moral and political truths and evils. Catholics should know there's a difference between grave sins or evils and venial sins. And so the same principle applies with political issues and evils. Pope St. John Paul the Great approved a doctrinal note in 2002 written by Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, the future Pope Benedict. And in it, it says there are moral principles that do not admit of exception, moral principles which are fundamental and inalienable, such that it is morally impossible for Christians to promote laws that violate those principles. This document specifically calls out the right to life from the moment of conception as one such principle. Notably, no mention is made here of immigration policy or the death penalty with respect to such non-negotiable principles. But in a confidential memo that was later leaked, Cardinal Ratzinger, as head of the CDF, explicitly says that not all moral issues have the same weight as abortion and euthanasia, and that there may be a legitimate diversity of opinion among Catholics on the application of the death penalty or waging war. It's important to point out that, regardless of its initially confidential nature, direction and guidance from the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, or the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, as I believe it's called now, it always carries a lot of weight, especially when headed by a future pope. In 2006, Pope Benedict XVI reaffirmed what was taught under his predecessor about the principal focus of the Catholic Church's interventions in the public arena, namely principles which are non-negotiable, such as the right to life. No mention, again, was made of immigration or the death penalty in this 2006 address. Unlike the issues of abortion, euthanasia, marriage, and educational freedom, we see the Catechism treats immigration policy implicitly but clearly as a matter of prudential judgment, not something involving non-negotiable intrinsic evils. The obligation to welcome the foreigner is conditioned upon the ability of a more prosperous nation to do so. And I have to ask, how many people know that the United States is $37.5 trillion in debt? That's an incomprehensibly large number, and that's just the federal government, not state and local government debt. And I'm not sure why people think the devastating consequences of that debt will never come home to roost. Does that sound like a country with the ability to take on the financial civic burden of more immigrants from third world countries? Anyway, the Catechism goes on to say that political authorities have to take into account the common good, not just the good of immigrants, and thus may regulate immigration, placing conditions upon it, and that immigrants are obligated to obey the country's laws and help carry civic burdens. So this is the teaching of the Church, that immigration policy is not on the same moral level as abortion policy, and that immigration policy is a matter of prudence, whereas abortion is one of principle.